Today we've got some exciting stuff to show you. We're going to rust encapsulate the frame on the C10 Project, but that's no easy undertaking. We'll be making a custom bed removal jig, stripping the rear frame down, doing some welding, replacing old beat up parts, and more. Follow along with the key tools we're using by checking the description below, and use this code to get 10% off your cart over $75 for the first 7 days this video is live. To start off, we're going to need to remove the bed on this thing. It's a full-size 8-foot bed, so it's not light. We start by taking key measurements so we can design what we're calling an H-jig. This jig will slide under the bed rails around the wheel tubs so it can lift evenly. We want it to be strong enough to hold the weight and even so it doesn't tweak and damage the bed. The bed is 72 inches wide rail to rail, and the wheel tubs are 36 inches long. So we'll give ourselves a little extra room and make our jig 70 by 48 inches. Now, fun fact, these measurements are for a C10, but pickup truck beds, full-size ones anyway, are all designed around being able to hold a standard sheet of plywood, which is 4 by 8 feet. So if you're looking to make one of these, the measurements will probably be similar, if not exactly the same, regardless of make and model. We're using 4x4 by 8-foot lumber and 8 6-inch 5/16 lag bolts to hold everything together. Total, we spent about $40 at the hardware store. We cut everything to size, pilot drill, and lag bolt the jig together. Next, with a bit of finagling, we slide this into the bed. Note, when you begin lifting, you want to do it from the bottom of the jig so all the weight is on the wood frame and not on the lag bolts. Now, we have a gantry crane which made this really easy. You could also use an engine hoist or skip all this and get 6 buddies and a case of beer, whichever is easiest. Beds off, we roll the truck away. And remember how I mentioned pickup beds are very standard sizes? Well, our shop table also follows this thinking and becomes the perfect bed dolly for the time being. Now we're going to move on to addressing the frame, but check back soon as we're going to rehab this bed in a future video. Alright, so to sum this up as quickly as I can, when you lay out a vehicle you have to clearance for the rear axle, which requires modifying the frame. For the C10, it needed these monster notches. These were a bolt-in kit that came with the air ride setup, but after driving it for 10 years, the driver's side has flexed and cracked. To start the repair, we have to remove the fuel line that's running through the frame and generally clean up the area we'll be working on. Next, we take an angle grinder and die grinder with a carbide burr and carve a groove along the full length of the crack. This will help us get good penetration and make sure we got it all. We drill an 1/8 inch hole at the end of the crack as well to keep it from coming back. And with the prep work done, I grab Dave and the MP200i to weld this back together. Now that the back of the truck isn't going to fall off, we can start removing all the extra parts on the back half of the frame. While we're here, we also take inventory of the suspension and notice some of this stuff is pretty played out. Oh my God, I ain't doing much anymore. We order some fresh stuff so that it will be here by the time we finish up the frame. With the rails looking pretty bare, we pressure wash as much dirt and grime off as we can, then move on to the next step. Rust removal and paint prep. So similar to how you guys are at home, I'm not stripping the frame completely, right? There's still the 4-link brackets, there's a taillight harness is still in there, but for the most part, all the major components are gone. We can work around the couple remaining things. So for the back end, our next step is going to be to take the SCT and a wire brush, get everything loose off, get as much of the rust off as we can, and then we can go ahead and rust encapsulate the rest of the frame. I was really grateful for this thing on these long, flat frame rail sections. It's perfect for the top, sides, and bottom. I opted for the gold steel wire drum as I wanted to take rust off but not really remove metal like a grinder would. And the SCT was great for that. Just a note, make sure you have some PPE on during this rust removal step, as you'll be flinging debris everywhere. Once I finish the outside, I switch over to the drill with the cylindrical wire brush attachment for the inside of the frame. This gets into the corners and nooks that the SCT can't manage. Now I noticed during this that the passenger side frame rail was less rusty but coated in thick, oily dirt from the old misfiring small block that powered the C10 for so long. So thanks, Chevy. Well, the rear differential also got that same rust proofing treatment, so I had been putting it off for as long as possible. I use a combo of the tools I had out, a wire brush by hand, and no lie, a chisel. And to get this as clean as possible, I popped the brake lines off and redid them, and addressed the rusty brake drums as well. They have their own videos on YouTube that you can check out after this one. Our next step is going to be to take chassis clean, and what this is going to do is it's going to break down any of the remaining oils and dirt, grease, that kind of stuff that's still left on the frame that the mechanical means didn't take off. We'll scrub it with the chassis clean, then we can take our pre-painting prep and get this thing ready for rust encapsulator. All right, we got the C10 in the booth, frame's all cleaned up. Next step is gonna be to tape everything off. We don't wanna get paint on. Then go ahead, pop the wheels off, and we can spray rust encapsulator. Something that's interesting about taping up a frame versus like a normal car is you have to get a bit creative. There's not like a tried and true format to taping up a gas tank, for example. That said, this is a driver. We did the best job we could. I'm confident that it'll look really good. Frame should come out awesome. And with that, we can jump into painting. The prep and application of Rust Encapsulator Plus is just like any other spray paint. Clean and wipe down with Pre and start applying. The aerosol is nice because it's quick and lays out great. Alternatively, you could use the quart and brush on method as well. We do 2 coats with a 10-minute flash time in between, and then finish off with Extreme Chassis Black for that satin OE style finish. After our paint dries for a day or so, we reassemble the back end of the truck. As I mentioned, we also swapped out the old airbags, shocks, brake lines, and airline while we were here. And with all that done, here's how it's looking. I'm really happy with how this turned out. Structurally, we repaired the crack notch, and it's stronger than new. Next, we scraped off all that old dirt and rust and reconditioned the frame so it will be good for another 200,000 miles. And we breathed some life back into the worn out air suspension. This project had it all: welding, grinding, repair, and paint, which is probably similar to how you'd be working at home, right? Your one project spirals into 3 little ones, but when they wrap up, man is the payoff good. And now you have a guide to cleaning up the frame rails on your own vehicle. So get out there and share the results with us. You can find all the tools and products we used in this video in the description below, and head over to eastwood.com for more information.